Это тип пива. Что это питчер? Семь утра. Пномпень. Столица Камбоджи. Хотя это столица, но очень провинциальная. Но, как вы видите, строительство идет полным ходом. Хотя город в основном такой одно-двухэтажный. Вот в таком нео-французско-колониальном стиле. Может не нео, может просто французско-колониальном стиле. Все абсолютно застроено. И люди живут во всех возможных дырах. Точно манго?
А что это?
Я не знаю, я просто не знаю, как оно растет вообще.
Внизу.
В красном цвете.
Нет.
After 5 years of waging civil war, Cambodian communist forces known as the Khmer Rouge marched into Phnom Penh on April 17, 1975. They immediately began forcibly evacuating the residents of the capital and other cities, displacing more than 2 million people to the countryside. The city dwellers joined rural Cambodians in an ill-fated attempt to turn the country back to year zero and establish a peasant-led agrarian society. Most of the population was forced to work 14 or more hours a day, building dikes and canals and growing rice and other crops. The Khmer Rouge also abolished school money, private property, courts of law, markets, businesses, the practice of religion, and nearly all personal freedoms. Over the next nearly 4 years, as many as 1 of every 4 Cambodians died from malnutrition, hard labor, or disease. At least another 200,000 were executed without trial. Vietnamese troops and the forces of the United Front for the National Salvation of Kampuchea did Cambodia on Christmas Day 1978, encountering only a fleeing Khmer Rouge military and a weakened population, they moved quickly through the country and reached Phnom Penh on January the 7th, 1979. The next day, Vietnamese officials who accompanied the invasion were drawn to the stench from a compound in the southern part of the city. There, they discovered the most important of the Khmer Rouge prisons, the former Tuol Slang High School, known by the code name S21. Tuol Slang was used to detain people the Khmer Rouge considered enemies of the state, including members of their own ranks. Of the estimated 14,000 men, women and children held there, only about a dozen are known to have survived.
In just under 4 years, thousands entered its gates. Only a few survived.
When I was in here, I prayed, who will find justice for me? I pray.
Today, a wounded country is still trying to come to grips with the atrocities that took place inside Pol Pot's secret prison. Cambodia, a country that suffered through one of the cruelest eras in history, when the Vietnamese military occupied the Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh, ending a 2-year undeclared war against the Khmer Rouge. The next day, a pair of Vietnamese photojournalists stumbled upon a former high school completely fenced in by barbed wire. Venturing into the compound, they discovered a gruesome scene: decomposed remains of recently murdered men, bodies with throats slit, and instruments of torture fixed with the skin of their victims. The Vietnamese had uncovered one of the most shocking institutions of Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge, a secret prison called S21.
It was literally an extermination facility. It was a secret prison execution center where people were brought for the most bizarre of reasons and forced, beaten, or tortured terribly into confessing to absurd, bizarre crimes, after which they were executed.
In a small room of S21, another disquieting discovery: a detailed archive chronicling the terror that transpired behind the prison walls. In cluttered piles lay texts of prisoners' forced confessions, execution orders, torture guidelines, and memos between prison commanders and Khmer Rouge leaders. Even more unsettling were the photographs. Thousands of them. Pictures taken upon prisoner entry and booking. Pictures taken after torture and death.
The idea that these people were being photographed when they came into Tuol Slang was bizarre. And to put it alongside of the signed execution orders and the daily execution logs, where they would keep track of who they were killing when, it was extraordinary.
The documents tell a story of a leadership steeped in paranoia. S21 was one of 70 prisons set up by the Khmer Rouge, but it was considered the most crucial. Its mission, to protect the party center by ferreting out supposed spies and traitors. In less than 4 years, over 14,000 men, women, and children entered S21. All but 7 died in custody.
There's a Khmer Rouge saying that said it's better to kill 10 innocent people than to let one guilty person go free.
Van Nath and Chum May are 2 of the fortunate ones, both incarcerated at S21. Their lives were spared because each possessed talents deemed useful to the Khmer Rouge. Chum May was a mechanic. Van Nath was just hours away from execution when it was discovered he was an artist. He was asked if he could create paintings of Pol Pot.
So the painting gave me the motivation, because I told them I could do this. If I couldn't, my life would end right there.
The talent saved Van Nath's life. In the years since the fall of Pol Pot, Van Nath has continued to paint. His art vividly depicts the misery of life at S21. Today, many of his paintings hang in the Tuol Slang Museum of Genocide, located on the prison grounds. Much of S-21 remains in the exact state it was during its years of terror. Since the museum opened in 1980, hundreds of thousands of Cambodians have come through its doors to grieve the past. Thousands of prisoner photographs line the walls. Each one has a story. At S-21, Ongkar would punish with reckless abandon. It mattered little if one were a man, woman, or child, guilty or innocent. Cambodia was entering its genocide. With barbed wire firmly in place, in May 1976, S-21 opened its doors in the deserted city of Phnom Penh. Commanding S-21 was Kong Kek Iu, better known by his nickname, Doik. Intensely devoted to the Communist Party, Doik was known by his staff to be both fatherly and sadistic.
Doik was a fascinating character. Doik was a mathematician. He graduated at the very top in the entire country in the mathematics baccalaureates. He was a professor. He was a numbers guy. Doik said to me, I was a technician for the Communist Party.
The attitude of all the staff in here towards him was normal, but they were afraid of him. Not afraid of him as a person, but as an order or disciplinarian. The orders were strict. The guards couldn't fall asleep or be careless doing their duties.
Ну, это само собой.
Right there in the river, and then go to Mekong Island. Mekong Island, so much Mekong Island, and near the Mekong Island, a monkey temple.
Одно искали, его до номинальной скеле,
упали, как народ на мотайске. Мы были на пути знаний, очертаний в осознанности сознаний. Но мы остались все под оковами маем. Мы коснулись оснований за окнами улиц. Есть реальности, обдохнули сквозь детали и пойми всю сексуальность.
Как река не может изменить течение воды, так и чувства берут в плен, кидают с высоты. Как волна уносит вдаль, забирая все следы, так и мы все в клетке, все
Those who survived interrogation made one last journey. They were driven to a place called Chung Ek, on the outskirts of the city.
I was the one who drove them to Chung Ek. The prisoners were killed in the open space, on the slope there. There were grave pits already dug, and the prisoners were taken to them one by one. They were told to kneel down, and they were hit with a long metal pole, an axle of an ox cart. After they'd been struck, their throats were cut to make sure they were dead. No one wanted to kill, but we had to carry out our orders.
This is the killing field of Chung Ek. But there were other killing fields. 200 prisons, 20,000 grave sites. The remains of men, women and children are scattered across the Chung Ek field to this day. Many of those who died here were among Pol Pot's most loyal supporters.
Many former comrades of yours, senior members of the party, were purged and lost their lives.
Not many. Some didn't admit their mistakes, but others knew and they admitted them in our meetings and they were accepted. We didn't kill many. We killed only the bad people, not the good.
For Pol, the purges were a great victory, but his ruthless pursuit of the imaginary enemy within would lead to the final collapse of the revolution he was trying to defend. There was a new enemy beyond the country's border, Vietnam. There had been a bitter border dispute. The old comrades were close to outright war. But in the spring of 1978, Pol ordered his last and bloodiest purge. This time, the blow fell in the country's eastern zone, the vital security area on the border with Vietnam. The soldiers and party officials who were expected to repel an invasion were driven by the lorry load to local interrogation centers. 100,000 men, their wives and their children were executed.
I saw these people in a school building. They were being blindfolded and shot. I asked the executioners if babies in their mother's arms were traitors too. I ordered them to release the prisoners. The total number was about 1,000 people, but only 600 were released. 400 had been killed before I got there. I told them, we need people to defend the country, and if thousands are being slaughtered, who will be there to do it?
The Vietnamese invasion began in the country's eastern zone on Christmas Day 1978. 13 days later, Phnom Penh fell. The collapse was total. Pol Pot slipped back into the forest. The long nightmare, 3 years, 8 months and 20 days, was over. And at last the world knew of the killing fields where nearly 2 million people had died.
5. Как вчера, в принципе. И Наташа уже едет, они в бизнес в Сингапур летят.
Доброе утро, сейчас 6 утра, мы уже выспались и идем на рынок. Тепло, но не душно. Мне кажется, слишком нарядная для...
Я еду в Сiem Reap встречаться с
Да,
Наташей
да.
и с Сашей.
Да, Настя такая вся нарядная на районе ходит. Настя налево, в переулок, в темный переулок, там где ничего нет. Собакиш. Привет, Злюкиш.
Он рычит, слышишь?
Да, он, видимо, не любит людей.
Все, пойдем, а то у меня смотри.
Тоже сплю, когда еду на работу.
Ты на велосипеде едешь?
Какая разница?
На пути домой было около сотни зданий. Все вели дворами, но мы одно искали. Его ладонями на песке волнами смывали, как на ровном отрезке. Мы были на пути знаний, очертаний, в осознанности сознаний. Но мы остались все под оковами мая. Мы коснулись оснований, за окнами улиц есть реальность. Я вдохну весь вкус деталей и пойму всю суть дуальность.